Did you know that most Excel users I've met overlook one of its most powerful tools? Excel tables can do way more than just hold your data or make it look pretty. They can actually save you hours of work each week. So in today's video, I'll show you how the hidden features of Excel tables can instantly transform the way you manage your data and even make updating charts a breeze. And if you're already an Excel Tables pro, check out today's tips and then drop your best time-saving hacks in the comments below so that we can all level up together. Here's a chart of coffee sales from March to October. I can use this timeline to select dates for the sales chart. And I can use this thing called a slicer to select any type of coffee. And I can use this other slicer to display cash sales or card sales. Then I can clear the filters using these buttons. How do I make all of this happen? Let's start with our data. Just because it looks like it's in a table, don't let that fool you. It's not yet in an Excel table. We have to put it in one. So to do that, I'm going to click on any of the cells inside the data range. Then I'm going to head up to the Insert menu. Then I'll click on Table, or I could use the Control-T shortcut. Now this is going to open this dialog box to create a table. We'll check that the data for your table is correctly specified. And if your table has headers, which in this case it does, we'll leave this checked. Then we'll click OK. And there we have an Excel table. And this is the default banded blue and white road table. I prefer a more modern look, so I'm going to click on this design. And while we're here, we can rename the table so that we can refer to it later. I'm going to change it to TBL for table. And I can't use a space, so I've got to use an underscore. And I'll call it sales data. Hit enter. Now here's a pro tip. If you're working in Excel with lots of tables, you won't always be able to see the table name because the design menu might not be active. For example, you might be on the home menu, and if you click onto a table, it doesn't automatically switch to the table design menu. So how do you know what table you're working with? Go to the quick access toolbar on the top here, right click on it, and then customize. Then I'll look for commands from and scroll down and find where it says table tools. Then click on that and then look in this list for it where it says change table name, and click on that and click on add. You'll see this has added change table name, and I can move this up and then I'll click OK. Then when I'm inside a table, you can see the name is up here. So table sales data. I can actually use this to edit the name if I want to, but it's always available. So if I click off and then click in here again, you'll see the table names just popped up again. Now let's set up the coffee sales sheet. I'm going to make the background white by clicking here and then selecting a fill of white. Then I'll change the width of column A by right clicking on it, clicking on column width, changing that to 2, clicking OK. Now make this cell A1 a blue color and add a title here. Then I'll change this to bold and size it 18. Finally, I'll add an image. So I'll click on Insert, Pictures, Place over Cells from this device. And I'll pick this coffee cup picture and click Insert. Then I'll resize it like so. And this is where the magic starts. We'll add a pivot chart and a pivot table that are linked to the Excel table that we set up earlier. This is critical for reasons that you'll soon see. Let's head back to the Sales Data tab. Make sure that a cell is selected inside the table. Then we'll head into Insert, and then we'll click on this drop down for Pivot Chart. Then we'll select Pivot Chart and Pivot Table. So the first thing it's asked is to select a table or range, and we have the correct table selected. Now we go to the existing worksheet option, and for a location, click on this arrow, click on coffee, put it in B13, and hit OK. I'm going to select the pivot table, so I click on this and expand this fields dialog box. Before we do anything else, I need to right click here and head into pivot table options. I want to look for this setting, auto fit column widths on update, and I want to uncheck it so that any updates don't change the width of columns B and C. Then I click OK. Now we'll add coffee name to a filter and date to the rows and GBP, which is the sales values, not into columns, and we'll put them into values like that. Okay, I'm going to close this fields box and right click here because I also want to add quarters. How do we do that? We'll head up to group and then select quarters and then hit OK. Now I'm going to reposition this a bit, change up the formatting a bit to make it look better. Set the column width to 4, a bit more narrow. It looks like the white formatting has disappeared, so let me just add that back in and hold Control Shift right arrow down arrow. Select everything to the right and below and then change that to a white color. That looks better. Now I'll reposition the chart. Let me fold the ribbon so there's more space on the screen. And there we have the basic pivot table and chart. Okay, but this still doesn't look like the chart we want. So how do we make it look even better? Let's keep working on the pivot chart. First, I'll select the data series. Then I'll press Ctrl 1 to bring up the Format Data Series box. I want the series overlap to be 0 and the gap width to be 100%. Then I'm going to change the formatting of the fill. Let's choose a color. I'm going to go to more colors. And at this point, I'm going to use a tool called Color Picker, which is from the Windows Power Toys. With the Color Picker, I can press Windows Shift C, bring up this Color Picker dialog box, and click on Pick. And I want something like this brown. It's going to give me the hex number, which I can then copy. And I'll put that hex number in here and click OK. Then we want to change the border to a slightly darker brown. Order in more colors, custom. Then I'll hit Windows Shift C for the color picker. Click on pick. I'll go for the brown inside. Copy that. Close the dialog box and replace this hex number with the one I just copied and click OK. So I'll close this now and then we'll work on the axis. So I'll right click on the axis and click on Format Axis. I'm going to go down to the labels and expand that menu. Then where it says multi-level category levels, I'm going to uncheck that box. So we have one level of dates. And close that. Oh, you know what? I'll select the axis again and press Ctrl B to bold it. Let me hit the minus button here to show the months and quarters. So you'll notice this isn't showing all the months of the year. To do that, I need to right click on the rows here, go to Field Settings, go to Layout and Print, and then Show Items with No Data. I've got to check that box, then click OK. So now you see January, February, we didn't have any data. October, November, December, we didn't have data. So we have data for March all the way through to September. And you can turn that off if you want by right-clicking on a row label and then going to Field Settings and then clicking on Layout and Print and then unchecking that box so it doesn't show items with no data. Then click on OK. And we're back to how it was before. Now I want to add data labels to these bars. So I'm going to click on the pivot chart, then go to Design, then click on Add Chart Element, hover over Data Labels, and click on Outside End. At this point, you may be wondering why there's a big gap above the chart. Well, it's because we're going to add some extra important controls into that space. Let's start by adding a timeline. I've got this pivot chart selected. I'm going to go into Pivot Chart Analyze, click on that, then click on Insert Timeline, and select Date, and then click OK. Now I'll reposition this to the space above. I'm going to use the Alt key to snap this to the Excel grid. So I'll press Alt and then move this, and then press Alt and then resize it here. Now I'll change some of the options here. So I'll go to Timeline, and I'm going to get rid of the scroll bar, and then I'll change the caption from Date to Timeline. Hit Enter. then do a bit more resizing, press Alt and resize that. I also think I'll resize this, so I'll press Alt and snap it to the same vertical. Now let's add a slicer. Select the pivot chart and then click on Pivot Chart Analyze, then click on Insert Slicer. We'll choose coffee name and cache type. Then click OK, and that will insert 2 slices. I'll reposition this one, holding the Alt key, and then the cache type one, again holding Alt key. And then I'll reposition this a little bit, resize this with the Alt key. And now they're all lined up. Then I'll change this slicer because it's all in one column. I want to show everything. So I'll make it 2 columns. Go into slicer and increase the number of columns from 1 to 2. We're almost done with this chart, but if I select a coffee, you'll see that the chart title doesn't change. I could even select more than one coffee and show the totals for those 3 selected coffees, but the title of the chart still says total. Let's make it so that the title shows which coffees are selected in the slicer. Let's go to this pivot table and select it. Then I'll press Ctrl+C to copy it and Ctrl+V to paste this. Now I'll right click and click on Show Field List. We're going to remove sum of values and remove all the dates from the rows. And then we're going to change this coffee name so it's not a filter, it's in the rows. Now I'll right click on Grand Total and remove it. And I'll change this row label to coffees. So coffees is that list of coffees here. Now I'll use a formula to create a list of these coffees separated by a space and a comma. And I'll select the list of coffees here, hit enter. So there's the list of coffees separated by a comma and a space. I'm going to copy that and paste it as values, Ctrl+Alt+V, and then selected values. Click OK. Now I'll use this and copy all that text with Ctrl+C. Then I'll replace that cell with an if formula. If this E36 equals Ctrl+V, that list of coffees, then we'll show the word total. Otherwise, we'll just show the list E36. So that cell E37 is what we're going to use as the title. I'll bold it, scroll back up. Let's delete this chart title, select it, and then press delete. Then I'll go to Insert, and I'll choose Shapes, and I'll use a text box. Let's create it here. And then in the formula bar, I'll type equals, and go down here to E37, where it currently says total, and hit enter. Then I'll format this. Let's make it size 18 and then reposition it. Now, when we select a coffee, the name of the coffee is shown as a title. And I can click on this button to select more than one coffee, and you'll see they're all listed in the title. And when I clear the filters, it returns it to a total. Do you remember the whole point of this video was to show you why Excel tables are so good? Well, this is the part where we see how they make a difference. Let's add some data to the table. Currently we have from March all the way through to September, and it stops at September. And that's reflected in our sales data table. If I press Control down, you'll see the last row is September 30th. So I'm going to go into the Part 2 sales data here, and you'll see this is data from October onwards. So I'll select it with Control-Shift-Right arrow, down arrow, then press Control-C, head back to the sales data table, and down here on the next row, which is empty at the moment, I'll press Control-V. And you'll see what's happened is that Excel has automatically expanded this, so the new table contains October data. Now this pivot chart and pivot table here, they don't show October yet, but all I need to do is click on them, go to Pivot Chart Analyze and hit refresh. Both the pivot chart and the pivot table are updated just like that. Now, having that dynamic chart is cool, but what if you find yourself in a situation where you've got to manually add entries to your data? How do we make it easy to prevent data entry errors? This next tip will show you how. Here I have a list of personal budget expenses in an Excel table. I want to make sure I'm consistent with the subcategories so that my table stays free of typos. When I click on any cell here, I have a drop-down menu that restricts me to predefined values. When I choose a subcategory, the emoji and category columns update automatically, and I can easily add new subcategories to the drop-down list. To set this up, we need to use an Excel table to store our expenses, and we need to create a new table to store our subcategories, emojis, and categories. At the moment, this is just an Excel range, and it's not an Excel table. To convert it into an Excel table, go to Insert and click on Table. Where is the data for your table? We'll check it's correct. A1 to C22, that's right. My table has headers, so I need to check this box and then click OK. Then I'll change the table design. I prefer this kind of design. And you might also be wondering where I got the emojis from. Well, there's a little shortcut now that we have ChatGPT. Here's the ChatGPT app, and I'm using ChatGPT 4.0 with the canvas. So I just asked it to create a table matching each budget expense subcategory with fitting emojis. And I copy and pasted the subcategories from Excel, and this is what it provided me. So I could either download that using this download table, or I actually told it I want to copy these to the clipboard, and it reformatted them into a table that I can just copy like this. Alternatively, if you want to select your own emojis, just press Windows period, and that brings up the emoji picker. Then you can go search for something, let's say clothes, and select the emojis. Let's rename our table. Go to Table Design, and where it says the current table name, let's replace that. I'm going to call ours TBL underscore expense underscore categories. Hit enter. Now we'll add a named range, and I'll do that with Control and F3 to bring up the name manager. Click on New. For name, choose expense categories, and let's refer this to and select the values in that column. So you see table expense categories. There's an open square bracket, subcategory, close square bracket, and that indicates the column that's called subcategory. Click here and then OK. Then close the window. Head back up to our table of expenses. Select the subcategories. Click on Data. Then go to Data Validation, and we'll choose to allow from the drop-down a list. And the source of that will be our named range. So we'll have to press F3 to bring up the Paste Name menu. Click on Expense Categories, click OK, and then click OK. And what that's done is it's added these drop-downs so we can select from any of these values. The final part to making this work is to add lookup formulas so that the emoji and category columns update automatically when we change the subcategory. Let's click on this cell and write the formula equals. We use an XLOOKUP as I'm using Excel 365. XLOOKUP just happens to be more versatile than other lookups, so I prefer it. The lookup value will be this one, dentist, and you'll see these square brackets because I've created this as an Excel table. So my lookup array will be in the categories, this column here. You see it's table expense categories, subcategory. The return array, I'll press comma, that will be what's in here in the emoji column. If nothing's found, I want to return a dash, and match mode, I want an exact match. Then I close the bracket and hit enter. Now let's copy that formula down, Control D, and I'll do the same for category. Equals XLOOKUP, dentist, comma, go to the categories table. The lookup array is subcategory, comma. The return array is category, comma. And if it's not found, let's return a dash, comma, and we want an exact match, which is 0, and close bracket, enter. Then copy that down, Control D, and now we can add another entry. Then we come to the subcategory. We can select from this drop down. I say click on pets, and we get the emoji and category automatically updated. Plus, what you can do is go into categories and add a new category to the bottom of this table, and everything else will automatically update. So now you can add new rows to your data while preventing errors. But if you have a lot of data, it can be like looking through a big pile of paper that's randomly stacked. We want to organize that pile into neat stacks that are easy to review. Let's turn to sales data for our next example. Here's an Excel table with the fictional sales of fantasy items. How do we quickly organize this to show sales in the Asia Pacific region? A simple way is to right-click on a cell that says Asia Pacific, and then hover over Filter, then select Filter by selected cell's value. So you see this produces a table filtered by Asia Pacific. Then we can stack filters. Let's say we want to check Asia Pacific sales of magical creatures. Let's right-click on this cell that says magical creatures, hover over Filter, and then click on Filter by selected cell's value. And there we have a table that's filtered on both the Asia Pacific region and magical creatures. But to get back to the original view, you have to clear filters one at a time from each column, like this. So click the drop-down, click on Clear Filter from Category, click on this drop-down, click on Clear Filter from Region, and that can get a bit annoying if you do it repeatedly. So let me show you an even better way to do it. Make sure that you select a cell inside the Excel table. Then we don't go to Table Design. Instead, we go to Insert, and then go to the right where it says Slicer, and then click on that. I'm going to choose the first 4, and then click OK. Now we're presented with the 4 slices we've selected. Let's rearrange them. I'm going to turn on something called Snap to Grid. You could just use the Alt key, and as you move these around, it will snap to the columns here and the rows on the left. But I prefer to use Snap to Grid because it means I don't have to keep pressing Alt. And now we're done. I'll switch off the Snap to Grid. Now instead of right-clicking and then choosing Filter and Filter by selected cell's value, we can go straight to the slicer and then choose a region. We can also choose a salesperson like Frodo, and let's see what kind of magical creatures he sold. Oh, dragon egg and griffin feather, and you can see the product names are here too. And then easily clear the filters like this. Now that you've seen how Excel tables can be used to filter your data with slices, don't stop there, because you can also use tables to instantly split your data into multiple sheets so you can display them separately by category. So watch this video next to learn how to take Excel tables to the next level and save even more time.